Ooh. What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? PC, how feeling? How y'all doing? Yep, it's early. Hey, you know what? My kids love me beatboxing. Hold up. Oh, I had to pick his name. Cool. Yeah, man. What's up? What's up? It's early, man. Early in the morning. It's 8:22. You know, to drop them kids off. So it's probably like my son, I still got one more up now. And he ain't bust in here yet. But as soon as he get up, y'all might be hearing some rapping whenever he come through. Because he just bust. Your daddy talking in here. Gotta, you know what I'm saying? Be quiet. How's everybody doing though? Cool. Y'all probably still sleeping. Most of y'all dreaming of getting to the money. Some of y'all still sleep dreaming of getting to the money. But am I getting to the money right now? Yeah, it's working for me. But you know, to each his own, right? Whatever works for you, they might have been working all night. You know, no fault to them, but hey, it's the top of the morning, man. I'm feeling good. Tap in if you like, you tuned in, hit that like button. I am on YouTube and Facebook. We'll see how this works. I might switch it up a little bit, but you know, for now, we're gonna be while we hyped up during this Black History Month. Like I said before, I wanted to participate in dropping some awareness of other people than the ones we, learn in school. So, pressure somebody be like, oh, I ain't never heard of this person. So, and what's going on? I'm still sharing this to everybody. Miss Zora, Neale, Hurston, that's what we was talking about yesterday. We're supposed to went live again. They're going to have to finish the documentary that we were showing. And, couldn't get back on. Life happens. So this is kind of like second. So got to get the family time in whenever you get it. And most of the time I get it when I really want to go live. Or, what I'm saying, get into some leisure stuff. But yeah, Miss Zora, we're gonna upload the sister Zora, Neale, Hurston, we got the rest of the documentary we about to show. And before we get into all that, I gotta show my home some love, and we uplifting, we building, we finding out all kind of stuff. New information is coming out, and the vibe is just right for us to come together and make something happen, right? So without further ado, my homie right here, Rick Bang.
Lord, let the Mississippi River flow, let it wash away my pain. I know hope that I'll never get to see again. Hope it wash away my pain. Yeah. My My mama's from Clarksdale, and my daddy's from Natchez, Mississippi. My folks in Chicago, they need to come home. On the two-lane highway, we used to stop anywhere and go fishing. Go fishing, y'all. But those days are gone. I sat in the driveway on a little corn whiskey. Some whiskey, just trying to be strong. I found out the hard way, life can get a little tricky, but you got to hold on, Lord, let the Mississippi River flow, let it wash away my pain. I know hope that I'll never get to see again. Hope it wash away my pain. This is the place where you lay your burdens down. Yeah, burdens down. If a tree in the woods fall down, then you never get to see it. Never heard a sound. Thursdays and Fridays, I'm gonna do a little bullshitting. But if you knew what's on my mind, give your people some flowers while they're here and still living. Cause we're running out of time. Lord, let the Mississippi River flow, let it wash away my pain. I know hope that I'll never get to see again. Hope it wash away my pain. Lord, let the Mississippi River flow, let it wash away my pain. I know folk that I'll never get to see again. Hope it wash away my pain.
Check, check, check. Check, check. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Shout out to the homie, the big homie, Rick Bain, man. And I appreciate everybody tuning in right now. It is Brother Lawrence, man. 228. Go Coach, stand up. What up? How's everybody doing? What y'all got going on, man? Y'all working? Y'all just up? What y'all got going, man? So keep this thing rolling. We do have the second part of this documentary about Miss Zora, Neale, Hurston. Okay, we're gonna get into that. Make sure y'all hit that like button. You ain't gotta share it, but at least come through, show some love. You can peep in the chat, and hope you enjoy the show.
Oh, well, that's given all the details. They use that sort of loose thing. Sometimes a person is talking a lot, giving the details, low rating you in front of the public, and they say, ain't she specifying, telling all about them.
Hurston wanted to talk about language, for example. She would talk about how people would say, I killed him dead. Then if you were really angry, you might say, I killed him cemetery dead. That there was something about the language that was inventive, that was creative. And this is at a time when the common belief is that black people could not speak English correctly. Hurston argues not only could black people speak English differently, but the way they spoke English had been so influential that it changed the way Southern white people spoke.
Every white boy, every white girl goes around saying, Now, their Anglo-Saxon ancestors said yay and nay and yes and no, but not That is African. The most dramatic Africanism in the speech of Americans.
West Africans in Senegal call la langue du, the sweet language. the sweet language was a language dependent entirely upon tone. And even the lengthening out of a word. So if I spoke the sweet language to you in the South, instead of saying, hi there, how are you? I'd say, hey, how you doing? Well, I never heard white folks use sweet language, and I heard black people use it all the time.
In 1935, Zora began working for the Library of Congress. The pioneering musicologist, John Lomax, and his son Alan were creating a repository for America's folk songs. Their work, documenting black music, had been limited to Southern prisons.
She was a fan of the senior Lomax, less so of the son. She was fascinated with the work they were doing with Leadbelly.
Good night, Ari. Good night, Ari. Night is fine, Leadbelly. You're a fine songster. I've never heard so many good Negro songs. Thank you, Sir Boss.
Zora and 20-year-old college student Alan Lomax recorded more than 200 songs as they journeyed from the Sea Islands of Georgia to the shores of Lake Okeechobee. Their work included a stop in Eatonville.
She kept being involved in circumstances in which her actual boss for folklore collecting, who was sending her back, in some cases, to literally her very own hometown, knew much, much less than she did, but had all of the social authority and the economic power to direct the project.
She convinces Alan Lomax to blacken up, that he would never be accepted in Black Town unless he blackened his face. He did it. He blackened up. Now, there was no way that a white man could blacken up his face and walk into a black community and not be noticed. And she would do things like that, and I think these antics on her part were also ways in which she expressed her displeasure with the racial structure.
This song, I got it Callahan Carter, which is...
I gotta pause this for a second to make sure I say fair use. Fair use. This is for educational purposes only. Okay, fair use.
Railroad Center in the northern part of Florida. Fort Myers, in Florida. Let's shake it, let's break it. A rail weighs 900 pounds, and the men have to take these lines and get it in shape to spike it down. And while they're doing that, while they have a chant and also some songs that they use the rhythm to wake it into place. And then the boss hollers, bring up my hammer gang, and they start to spiking it down.
She really wants to understand Black people's cultural expressions, and so many people don't even want to acknowledge them, think there is nothing to understand. Even the people who want to celebrate want to say, well, you know, they just know how to sing and dance. And she wants to say, no, there are very profound principles.
No matter where you go, you can find verses of Uncle Bud. And it's the typical Negro pattern, the same line repeated 3 times with a song on the end.
Blues singers from different places had different sounds. The Brazos guys sounded like this. Baby, I want you to know I just don't want you to man, baby, the guys from the Delta sang like this. Babe, please don't go. Way back in that. Babe, please don't go. It was so beautiful. Goodness.
In 1936, had to go to Haiti to research a book on voodoo, leaving behind a relationship with a much younger man. The failed affair inspired her most famous novel.
I wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God in Haiti. It was dammed up in me, and I wrote it under internal pressure in 7 weeks. The force from somewhere in space, which commands you to write in the first place, gives you no choice. You take up a pen when you are told, and write what is commanded. There is no agony like bearing an untold story inside of you.
Their Eyes Were Watching God is a story of Janie Crawford discovering herself through her relationships with 3 very different men. Logan Killicks, her first husband, her second husband, Jody Starks, and her third husband, Tea Cake, who really encourages her to accept and love herself as she is.
A friend of mine gave me a copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God, and I read it in a sitting and absolutely loved it.
It's a novel that it can be laugh out loud funny, and Hurston is a very gifted comic writer. And for some readers, it's a love story. And that's a very unusual thing in the African-American tradition. Certainly in 1937, we don't have many love stories.
But there's another way to read it, which is it's a novel about the capacity of the African-American vernacular to narrate a novel, to tell a story.
You start reading it and you think you won't be able to understand it. And then you realize that you understand it perfectly, and that not only that, it's very funny. And so it gives you the pleasure of learning skill in a way.
The monstropolis beast had left his bed. The 200 miles an hour wind had loosed his chains. The sea was walking the earth with a heavy heel. The lake is coming, Tea Cake gasped. It's coming behind us, Janie shuddered. Us can't fly, but we still can run, Tea Cake shouted. And they ran. The gushing water ran faster.
That uses a literary device, a well-known literary device called free indirect discourse. When the voice of the narrator and the voice of a character merge into a third voice, the narrator becomes educated by the black vernacular characters.
Joe Starks was the name. Been working for white folks all his life. When he heard all about him making a town all out of colored folks, he knew that was the place he wanted to be. He'd always wanted to be a big boss. But the white folks had all to say so. That was right, too. The man that built things ought to boss it. Let colored folks build things if they wants to crow over something.
That novel will continue to be read as one of the most sophisticated uses of free indirect discourse, which after all Flaubert used, and Henry James and Virginia Woolf and 1,001 other people. But none ever did it in a collective way to capture the collective voice of an entire community in the way that Zora Neale Hurston did. Zora Neale Hurston, establish yourself as a genius with that accomplishment alone. The mainstream press hailed it as a very exciting literary event. The Times, the mainstream newspapers and magazines all gave Their Eyes Were Watching God excellent reviews. Simultaneously, the black literary establishment all trashed Hurston's work.
The thing that struck me most and that I could not understand was how people just completely didn't see the love. They completely ignored it. And this is a real problem because it means that the people who read it had so little love for themselves ancestrally. You know, they really had no patience for their ancestors, thought that they were just, outdated, outmoded folk, and however they sounded was wrong.
Even Elaine Locke, Zora's longtime mentor, criticized the book, labeling her characters pseudo-primitives. He pressed Zora to mature as a writer by handling social issues in her work.
Alain Locke is a malicious little snot. I get tired of the envious picking on me. One who lives by quotations trying to criticize people who live by life. I will send my toenails to debate him on what he knows about Negroes and Negro life.
Zora's harshest critic was Richard Wright. In 1940, Wright would become America's first popular black protest writer with his best-selling novel, Native Son.
Richard Wright trashed it. He said it was about a bunch of darkies making love and playing the banjo down on the muck in the Everglades. Wright felt black art was about the dramatization of white racism. Hurston wrote a book that's not about white racism at all, or not certainly primarily. White people, white racism occur off stage.
Oh, don't tell me about Richard. I couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand him. Don't ask me about Richard Wright. Oh, my God. Oh, God. He didn't like white people. He didn't like colored people or whatever. He might have been a little bit jealous of Zora.
She was the healthy side of black life that was pretty much absent from Richard Wright, whom I also love very deeply. But to me, they are polar opposites because she is a very vibrant, self-loving spirit.
This book is such a strong feminist book. What makes Janie Crawford stand out is that she's not a victim. This is not a woman who is sorry, who is pitiful, who's asking for our forgiveness or our sympathy or our pity. She's just telling her story.
And I think what women love about that book is that she is at that place where she's in her own space. She's very happy with herself. And she's basically contemplating life and being very grateful for life. But she's not grasping for anything. She's not feeling she needs anybody. And that's a very good place to be.
In 1940, Zora was at the height of her career with 5 books in 6 years, including her new novel, Moses, Man of the Mountain, and her book on voodoo, Tell My Horse. She spoke at college campuses, gave lectures on drama, and was interviewed on the radio. She drove her red convertible from Ohio to Florida, and in Beaufort, South Carolina, she became involved with a roadside church group, the Commandment Keeper Church of the Living God.
The Church of God seems to be a more African form of expression, a protest against the stereotyped form of churches among literate Negroes. Its keynote is rhythm.
Zora was interested in recording the music they played in their services. Her colleagues from Barnard helped her secure funding from anthropologist Margaret Mead.
I was asked to film and record what was going on in a Baptist church in Beaufort, South Carolina. Part of Dr. Margaret Mead's program on religious ecstasies. And Zora prepared all that in advance. That was one thing we could say about Zora. She's a pretty good organizer.
Her camera crew took my picture, and I remember when she spoke to her crew, she had that authoritative voice. That girl walking down the street, that was me.
When we met them and told them that we were going to make motion picture film, they explained that in the Bible, it says, "Thou shalt not make a graven image of the Lord," and they wouldn't let us do it. And Zora knew exactly what was going on. I found her very persistent.
The person that was playing the tambourine, that was me. Music seemed to take away the evil spirits, I would say. And then we, when you get into it, then you notice it's the rhythm. It's the rhythm, and the spirit come in with the rhythm.
Hey. They want to Josephine.
Julia Jones goes first into ecstasy, then a trance, after which she sometimes utters prophecies to the whole congregation. Her eyes are closed, and her movements are like a sleepwalker. She uttered one time, "I feel hate here, hate." There's the suggestion of the African witch doctor sending out evildoers in his face.
Zora had lived a life few could have imagined, an anthropologist and a novelist. Her publisher thought her adventures would interest readers and asked her for an autobiography. She reluctantly agreed and titled it Dust Tracks on a Road.
The most important thing to remember about an autobiography is that the author starts with the person that they wish to define here and now. Then they look backward at their life and justify everything from their birth in their lives to this point in time. People misrepresent themselves in order to justify who they were, and Zora Neale, unfortunately, did the same thing.
She had written that black people did not reveal that which the soul lives by. And I think writing an autobiography must have been extraordinarily difficult because she wasn't going to reveal that which her soul lived by. And so there are lots of misrepresentations of fact about her life. She claims to have been born in Eatonville. She's very careful not to say when.
Zora was a master of disguising her birth date. Throughout her life, she would give completely phony dates for when she was born. There's been a lot of controversy about this, but we now know for sure she was born in 1891. And interestingly, she wasn't born in Eatonville, although she always claimed to be born in Eatonville. She was born in Nottosaka, Alabama.
Oh, she lied a little, as you know. She lied about her age. Maybe she was 10 years older than she told me she was. But, I mean, we can forgive her that.
Zora, whose classic novel centered around a woman with 3 husbands, would never publicly acknowledge her own 3 marriages. She met her first husband, Herbert Sheen, at Howard University and married him in 1927.
I don't know why she married that man. Never saw him, and nobody else. She did marry him. I mean, she really did marry him. But there she was there, and we never saw him.
There's a lot of evidence that she had the kind of love for Sheen she had for her lifelong friends. And Hurston was both an incredible lover, and she was an incredible hater. When she hated, she was really good at it, and she's a little scary. The other 2 husbands, both marriages that lasted well under a year, and both marriages, again, where she barely lives with him as far as we can tell. The Albert Price marriage is the one that's most startling because of the amazing age difference between 25-year age difference. He's 23, she's 48.
She said she was afraid that marriage would only widen her hips and narrow her life. Her work was her master, and she followed its commands. And, you know, she loved these men, but they were mere men.
She liked freedom. I asked her why she didn't stay with her husband. She said they bored her. After a certain time, they bored her. So she just left, or they broke up, because she didn't like confinement. She didn't like to be anybody's prisoner.
Zora's autobiography, Dust Tracks on a Road, was published in 1942. It sold well, but it was not the book Zora had intended to publish.
His
World War II began, there was sort of a climate in this country that discouraged speaking out against the government, much like the climate we have today. And political views that said, you know, these cannot go. So those were just cut out of the book.
The unpublished portions of her autobiography were radical. There, she connects the U.S. interest to the interests of colonizers. She's very critical about World War II. She raises the question of what's happening in Africa, Asia, and what's happening to people under colonized regimes. And of course, the publishers would not publish it.
Bitter tears are being shed over the fate of Holland, Belgium, France, and England. I must confess to being a little dry around the eyes. President Roosevelt could extend his 4 freedoms to some people right here in America before he takes it all abroad. He can call names across the ocean, but he evidently has not speak even softly at home. I will fight for my country, but I will not lie for her.
During the war, Zora owned a houseboat. She liked being able to live and write in solitude, and on the water, she was free from Jim Crow laws.
One time she even took a trip from New York to Daytona Beach. It was a very romantic lifestyle, very fiercely independent, which is the way Zora was. And she had a pretty productive time. She wrote a lot of journalistic articles during the war on that houseboat.
Hurston, in early 1943, was interviewed and reportedly said something to the effect that conditions in the South were not as bad as they were portrayed in the North, and was alleged to have said that Jim Crow works.
I was misquoted. The colored people in the South had their own places of amusement and social gatherings, and had no more desire to associate with the whites than the whites had to associate with them. My stand is that the South is wrong in segregation, but the North is not guiltless. It's only a matter of degree. Harlem is a segregated neighborhood, just like any in the South.
Hurston received a lot of criticism for the political positions that she took. She became so fiercely independent and so fiercely focused on what black people had accomplished without any political help that she really kind of fell out of step with where black politics were, and Hurston drifted very much into the Republican camp. She wrote an article for the Saturday Evening Post about Robert Taft, who was considering running for the presidency on the Republican ticket.
Zora backed political candidates who opposed well. She thought special minorities would make them complacent. Too much dependence upon government, she argued, paves the way for a dictatorship, or even worse, communism. And Zora hated communists. Her ideas kept her name before the public, but her publisher still rejected 3 novels over 5 years.
So she's writing a great deal. However, she's finding it increasingly hard to get published. And her frustration in the 1940s about what publishers want from black writers is building to a point that it really starts to impact her own writing.
Well, Seraph on the Swanee, published in 1948, I think most people feel is her poorest book. It's a novel in which she really kind of turns away from the African-American environment and deals with a Florida cracker environment. The novel's mostly about white. It's really like no other book that she ever wrote.
She was trying to get away from the straitjacket black writers were in. You must write about black culture. You must have an angry social protest voice. You must write about urban poverty. Your story should ideally start with an alarm clock and a large rat. You must write, right? I mean, you know, it's the Richard Wright trap. And she was very much trying to get away from that.
Maybe the lack of success for that book is the fact that it was published in a very short period of time after she was accused of frankly molesting a child.
I am charged with meeting this boy at 4:30 every Saturday afternoon in the basement of a house where I have never been. The very time when I was out of the country. I swear by all I hold sacred that not one word of this vile charge is true.
Absolutely false charge was thrown out of court. But the story of the charge got into the Baltimore newspapers and the New York newspapers that served the African American community. And Hurston was just devastated by this. As a matter of fact, she wrote a letter saying, I'm seriously considering suicide. I just don't see how my reputation's ever going to survive this.
My race has seen fit to destroy me without reason. Please do not forget that this thing was not done in the South, but in the so-called liberal North. No acquittal will persuade some people that I am innocent. I have resolved to die.
They were able to show that the times that supposedly these acts of molestation had occurred were times that she was out of the country. The charges were thrown out. The district attorney said there's simply here to argue for the charge, and I don't believe she's guilty.
She went back to Florida. She never returns to New York again to live. She remains a public person. She remains a professional writer. But that incredible laughter that was part of the public person she crafted, basically from that point on, is gone.
See you when your troubles get like mine. Ooh, see you when your troubles get like mine. I'll see you when your troubles get like mine. You mistreat me, you mistreat this marvelous gal.
She wanted to come to some place where she could kind of just lick her wounds and feel better. And she came here, she settled among people who didn't require anything of her really, except to just come and have some fish with them every now and then, and not be too dressed up, but kind of relax and just be herself.
Oh, mama, come see that goat. See how he flies.
Zora moved to Belgrade, Florida, and joined an interracial group, entertaining her new friends with stories and songs.
This crow gonna fly tonight. See how he flies. Oh, mama, come see that crow.
She just sat there and just lovingly told stories. And everybody was just fascinated with her. And she was not a beautiful woman, but she would just hold you so that your attention was directly on her.
She had on a red dress that just was slinky right along with her body right down to her ankles. And she would do the railroad songs, and when she did, when she was dancing, Zora went with that costume she was wearing, and her whole body participated in whatever she was saying.
Zora moved to Miami and lived on a friend's boat while she struggled to raise funds for an anthropological expedition. Then at the age of 61, she took a job as a maid. When her identity was discovered, her employer called the press.
Zora said, well, I'm just here because I'm thinking about doing a novel about domestic workers, and this is a good way for me to learn to do research for my novel, and that's what I'm doing. And as you know, I'm a famous writer, and this is the way I'm spending my time right now.
Miami is certainly Hurston conscious. I have offers to do some ghostwriting. All I wanted was a little spending change when I took this job, but it has turned out to be one slam of a publicity dude.
Magazines started to contact her and say, oh, we didn't know you were still around writing. Why don't you write a story for us? So she was able to use that media attention to her own advantage. And so she quit working as maid immediately after this story appeared.
But Zora's depiction of Southern life was out of step with the times. The South was now the focus of a historic civil rights movement. In 1954, the Supreme Court ordered an end to segregated schools in America. Across the South, whites were angry, and so was Zora Neale Hurston.
The whole matter revolves around the self-respect of my people. How much satisfaction can I get from a court order for somebody to associate with me who does not wish me near them? If there are adequate Negro schools and prepared instructors and instructions, then there's nothing different except the presence of white people. For this reason, I regard the ruling of the United States Supreme Court as insulting rather than honoring my race.
She's absolutely anti-segregation. She's anti-economic segregation. She is profoundly anti-Jim Crow, writes about it at many different times, but she's also anti-insult.
This was a woman who had grown up in Eatonville in an all-black community and felt that she had received everything she needed and that she didn't need to sit next to white kids in school to be as educated, as intelligent, as productive.
Hurston was very critical of the decision because she felt it slighted black institutions which had been built behind the walls of segregation and had done a superlative educating our people against horrible circumstances.
Her view is, you folks, white America, you're lucky to get us. And the idea that they would have to be legislated, forced into those riches seems to her insulting and patently absurd.
Unfortunately for Hurston, she decided to enunciate this through the Republican Party, precisely at the time of the great boom in the civil rights movement in the 1950s. Well, these people couldn't afford to allow this kind of criticism to go unanswered, and so they scorned Hurston. They thought Hurston was hopelessly out of touch, and in some ways she was.
Zora worked odd jobs while living in a trailer. Her queries for books and articles were rejected. Then in 1958, she was offered a job writing a column for a black newspaper in Fort Pierce.
I had never heard of Zora, but Marjorie called me one day and she said, this wonderful woman has moved to town. She's a wonderful author. Marjorie had been in New York at the time of the Harlem Renaissance. And while I don't think she ever met Zora, she knew who she was and was very impressed that someone like that should be here in Fort Pierce.
She had lots of friends. She did a lot of visiting. She loved to eat ice cream, and she loved to talk while she was eating it, and she told stories until she couldn't, and, you know, fished and walked around Florida, and, you know, she had a life.
She's living in a small two-room house in Fort Pierce. She's writing a column for the local paper. She's writing novels, and she couldn't get anybody to take them, and there's really, really angry letters to her agents. Her last years were a struggle. She started health problems. She was looked after by people from her community, her neighbors, and their children who loved her very much.
We sometimes think of her life as this rags to riches story. Well, the truth is she never had the riches. You know, she did her work. She understood the enduring value of her work. And she also understood that it wasn't work that necessarily paid well. But she was okay with that, as long as she got to chronicle and celebrate the lives of the ordinary black folk who had influenced her from the beginning of her life in Eatonville.
Zora died on January 28, 1960. She was 69, but the papers listed other ages, 57, even younger. She was buried in an unmarked grave. At the time, all of her books were out of print.
She died working on a novel. When she had her stroke, she was working on Harriet the Great. And there are letters. One of the saddest things I've seen are a series of letters in which she is writing to publishers trying to get her novel published. And it is clear from the change in the handwriting that she is ill, and they are sad. It's a sad ending to a brilliant life.
When
when she died, there was just this trunk of manuscripts. And they actually took them out and started to burn them. And the local deputy sheriff said, I remember Miss Hurston was a great writer. Maybe we shouldn't be burning these manuscripts. And they got a garden.
When I read Robert Hemingway's biography, I realized that she was somewhere nobody knew where. And I felt I really needed to find her and to pay my respects. It was very simple, just to pay my respects and to leave a marker so that people would know that this is someone, who had done great things.
For more than 20 years, Zora was forgotten. Then one by one, her books came back into print. Her films and plays turned up in vaults and libraries. And a new generation of readers discovered the legacy of Zora Neale Hurston. The woman who had consistently been on the wrong side of history is now embraced by the world as a leading figure in American literature.
In this revival, she triumphs. I think she's made us all stronger, bolder, and much more willing to experiment, I think, and trusting that if you tell the story in your voice, others will have to learn that. If you tell it in your language, they'll have to learn that language.
Uncle Bud's a man like this. You can't get a woman gonna choose his fist. Uncle Bud.
I guess she could have done better financially with her books, but she didn't push for that. She just wanted enough to live on. She was content. Now, I can criticize her for that, but she didn't care. She wasn't worshiping money. She would have liked for you to have her books and read them free if necessary. She didn't care what you bought them. See, she was a free spirit, a free spirit.
Uncle Bud's a man in full. His nut sang down like a Georgia bull. Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud.
I think most of us are pretty predictable. We don't take big chances. Zora wasn't predictable. She took big chances and lived life to the fullest every single day.
Oh, little cat, big cat, playing in the sand. Little cat fought like a natural man. Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud. Uncle Bud got gals long and tall, and they rock their hips like a cannonball. Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud.
I was listening to National Public Radio, and they were talking about their book club, and they said, our book for this month is Their Eyes Were Watching God. And I was thinking, Lord, 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 Lord. If Zora Neale could look down and see that, that would totally blow her mind.
Bud got corn and he chucking. Uncle Bud got gals, Jolly, Uncle Bud, Uncle Bud.
Is it sung before the respectable ladies?
Never. It's one of those juke songs. And the woman that they sing Uncle Bud in front of is a juke woman. Yes, I heard from women.
Well, that is the way things stand up to now. I can look back and see sharp shadows, highlights, and smudgy in-betweens. I have been in sorrow's kitchen and licked out all the pots. Then I have stood on the peaky mountain, rapping in rainbows with a harp and a sword in my hands.
Check, 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 check. What up, what up, what up, what up? getting some really bad feedback right there. Appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Brother Lawrence 228. Yeah, that was hold on, man. Boom. Make sure that's muted. Cool. Yeah, man, wraps it up right there, Miss Zora Hurston, man. Man, she did her thing, man, and just to add on to it just a little bit, okay? Because in the title, I do have Cudjoe Lewis on there, and let me see if I can share my screen right quick. Select. Screen on allow. Get up out of there. So let's see if you can see this. I'm waiting on it to pop up. It got a slight delay. Just waiting on it to. Let me know if y'all see this screen. It says Contraband Flesh on Zora Neale Hurston. Okay, so all right, I see it. I see it popped up. All right, let me okay, we read caption right here. Zora Neale Hurston, Kasula, last of the Takoi slaves, still from black and white film in 16 millimeters, 5 minutes. The Margaret Mead collection arranged by Josh Beckley. Okay, and also the same clip that they took some stills from was displayed in the documentary. All right, but this Hurston was an anthropologist as well as a filmmaker, and things of that nature. But we should read this first paragraph right here before we get into the actual video. On May 10th, 1928, Zora Neale Hurston wrote a letter to Allen Locke, the self-professed dean of the Harlem Renaissance, and Hurston's longtime collaborator, frequent pen pal, and sometimes mentor. She reports the arrival of her diploma from Barnard College, where she studied anthropology. Okay, she added to the resume, getting it in, and person of color, salute to the sis. All right, commiserates with learned about the drudgery of teaching and begs for a visit. Hurston includes a detailed description of the sea animal graveyards that she discovered in the phosphate mines of Millbury, Florida. Remember in the documentary, you know what I'm saying? Went to Florida from New York, and she got kind of, exiled from New York. She went to Florida. So down here in Florida, she trying to make it happen, right? Hurston enclosed with the envelope a few objects, 2 vertebrae of prehistoric sea animals, excavated from the deep depressions of the seafloor in a small piece of wood. Okay, when she's doing this excavation, she found a small piece of wood. The bit of wood, she writes, is from the ship in Mobile Bay, which brings us to Cudjoe Lewis. Who is Cudjoe Lewis? Okay, Cudjoe Lewis is supposedly the man or the last slave from the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, I read one more just in case you're not familiar. In May 1859, Cudjoe Lewis, along with 116 other Africans, were captured from Dahomey.
Here's what I found on the web.
See what I'm talking about? See that? These phones, the people are listening. I didn't ask Google anything. I know y'all heard that. I'm quite sure y'all going through the same thing, that we have no privacy or all this thing. So what was I at? I don't even. Foster was traveling at the behest of the Meher brothers, 3 American slave traders who were originally from Maine, but had relocated to Alabama, where they operated on a shipyard. 3 months later, a slave ship, Cudjoe, docked in Mobile Bay, where the newly enslaved was sold. Because of the transatlantic slave trade was abolished some 50 years. Once the Mahars landed on U.S. soil, the ship was scuttled and fired. Its remains were left to sink to the bottom of the Mobile Bay, where, like Hurston's fish vertebrae, it would await discovery. Okay. Me personally, I believe slavery happened, and I just don't agree with the numbers per se. All right, there's some question marks about the numbers and the timeline, but for the most part, yeah. Hey, you got a victim, or you know what I'm saying, that's speaking up, telling you like this not my home. You know, it's gonna be really hard to debunk. Okay, but not only let me try to find this video. I should have already had it queued up. I should have had it queued up so when I come back here, I'm at the share video files. Video files. Let's see something right quick. I don't know if I can. All right.
Zora Hurston speaking. In all the big work camps, sawmills, and turpentine steel and road camps and whatnot, they have a man to go around and wake up the camp. And he has various chants and hollers to wake them up and makes them up as he goes along. Well, I heard these at Loffman, a big sawmill down in Polk County.
That's Cudjoe.
Wake up,
This is the
bullet,
man.
get on the rock.
Last
Quiet,
slave.
David, it's 5 o'clock.
Cudjoe Lewis.
Come up on that cover, bullets. Come on up on that cover, unless you want some trouble with the walker. Come on. Wake up, Jacob. Days are breaking. Get your whole cake of bacon and your shirt tail shaking. Wake up, bullets. Who for the show? Big crowd game on the other side, and I know you want to go. Wake up, bullets.
This sounds like somebody knocking at the back of the door.
Big crowd game on the other side, and I know you want to go. Hey, you're riding the house. You better learn how to skin. Kevin got a new job, and they need 100 men.
You got the look at that. You got that technology, right? During slavery, still, and people want to think that slavery has ended. Of course, it didn't transition in another form, but this ain't that long ago, right here. This is like a bulldozer or a crane.
This is a song called Tampa. I've known it ever since I could remember, so I don't know who taught it to me, but I heard it sung in my native village when I was a child. Not in front of the old folks, of course. Thought I somebody say, you nasty but you stinky but take it away. Oh, you nasty but you stinky but take it away. I do not want it in jail. Oh, I'm so glad that the law is passed. The women in Tampa got to wash the ass. Oh, the women in Tampa got to wash the ass. Oh, I do not want it in jail. Oh, thought I heard somebody shout. Horse up the window, let the stink go out. Oh, horse up the window, let the stink go out. I do not want it in here. Oh, since I heard somebody say, nasty but stinky but take it away. Ah, nasty but stinky but take it away. I do not want it in here. This song I'm going to sing is a line and rhythm, and I'm going to call it Mule on the Mount, though you can start with any verse you want and give it a name, and it's the most widely distributed voice song in the United States. Captain got a mule, mule on the mount, call him Jerry. Captain got a mule, mule on the mount, call him Jerry. Gonna ride him down, Lord, Lord, I'm ride him down. I got a woman, she shake like jelly all over. I got a woman, she shake like jelly all over. Her hips so broad, Lord, Lord, her hips so broad. My little woman, she had a baby this morning.
Hey.
My little woman, she had a baby this morning. He had blue eyes, Lord, Lord, he had blue eyes. Anna told her it must be the Hellfire Captain.
Buddy getting it in, huh?
Anna told her
Flipping it to the split.
must be the Hellfire Captain. He had blue eyes, Lord, Lord, he had blue eyes. Don't you hear them? Cuckoo birds keep a-hollering. Don't you hear them? Cuckoo birds keep a-hollering. It looks like rain. Lord, Lord, it looks like rain. I got a rainbow wrapped and tied around my shoulder. I got a rainbow wrapped and tied around my shoulder. It looked like rain, Lord, Lord, it looked like rain. I had me down 2-3 cans of tomatoes. Oh, hand me down 2-3 cans of tomatoes, a can of corn, Lord, Lord, a can of corn. I got a woman, she's pretty but she's too bulldozing. I got a woman, she's pretty but she's too bulldozing. She won't live long, Lord, Lord, she won't live long. You may leave and go to Halifax, but my slow drag will bring you back. Well, you may go, but this will bring you back. Been in the country, but I moved to town. I'm a Tolo shaker from my head on down. Oh, well, you may go, but this will bring you back. Some folks call me a Tolo shaker. It's a doggone lie. I'm a backbone breaker. Well, you may go, but this will bring you back.
Mike was muted. But yeah, that was I showed that clip because I had Cudjoe was in the front part, and he's supposed to be the last slave or the last existing or living. Well, he passed now, but he was the last one to pass. How about that? And that was him back in the first part. And not only Zora was able to get a hold to another person by the name of Emma Landing Roche. Right? She was the first writer to publish. She was the first writer to publish a book based on interviews with Cudjoe. Okay, so you seen that photo in the last one they used, but this lady took it. Not only she's a photographer, all right, back then, um, she was also a writer, and did an interview with Cudjoe, also known as Kazula, a survivor of the Middle Passage. He was a captive on the last known slave ship, Tilda, which a group of Americans used to illegally import slaves to Alabama in 1860. That ain't that far away, y'all. 1860. For the present day Benin, decades after the 1807 prohibition of the Atlantic slave trade or Atlantic trade. They didn't put the slave in there. I guess they were just trading in the Atlantic. Her book included an original photograph of Lewis and his wife, as well as her drawings of him and others of the other survivors. I would have just written the other survivors. But yeah, they gotta see. She drew a picture. Let's see if we can go to. This is the actual book. This is the what page we on? 162. Show you the cover. Is there a cover? Because we on the Internet Archive. Most of this information will be linked in the description. The Historic Sketches of the South, okay, by Emma Langdon Roche. I forgot what page it is. 160 something, right? It's like it's jumping to 140. Okay, it don't want me to. I thought I read, but this is her book, and she's doing the interview with these slaves, right? And I can't even get to the. But what is a contraband flesh on Zora Neale Hurston's barracoon? So what is a barracoon? What is a barracoon? Looks like if I can get to the wiki, quick wiki. An enclosure in which black slaves were confined for a limited period. Okay. So while these people were confined, Zora and Emma were able to come through and do these interviews. There's another book, The Story of the Last Black Cargo, Zora Neale Hurston. Okay, so this is Black History Month, man. That should open up your mind for a second to be able to further your research and understanding of who Mrs. Zora was and her hand into what we call history. And she had her hands on the last link to basically his story, and it's going to be told, but I don't agree how it's told to a certain degree when it comes to the slavery, but it happened. And these are little context clues that you can pay attention to. Let's see, let me stop sharing on this. I'll remove this from screen. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, man, how everybody doing? Man, I appreciate you tuned in, man. This is we've been rolling about, I don't know now. Should be approaching about an hour and 10 minutes. We're gonna wrap this thing going up though, but I do encourage everybody to do their genealogy, right? You finding out who your people are, if you already know who you are, fine and dandy, but hey, once you find out who you are, it's all that matters. When nobody else think about you, right? Sometimes we've been told who we are, but we're really not that. as well, right? So genealogy is key, finding out who you are and what your family's lineage plays a certain part in his story. You know, and that's what this whole Brother Lawrence is about, really. I'm just participating in the Black History Month, and I don't agree with it being just a month. It should be all the time, but that's, you know, that just comes with the system. You know, for it to be a month, we should take it upon ourselves to be able to shed light on historic figures that paved the way for us. You know what I'm saying, and pay it forward to the generation that's coming up. Ooh, excuse me. But yeah, man, it's Brother Lawrence 228. Damn, I'm hitting the mic. You know, we go coach representing this thing, man. Need help with the genealogy and getting started with it, man, you can hit me up, Brother Lawrence 228 at gmail.com. And we're gonna leave it like that, man. Tune coming later. No, tune. I'm thinking about a tune coming later. But I just want to show some love to my homie Rick Payne. His link will be his info will be in the description. Make sure you go check him out. And I'm gonna play him a few more times, man, to get people hip to it. And that's how we're showing love around here, man. So until next time, man, peace and blessings to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah. Hold up. I got a beat. I got a beat. Hey, hey. Hey, hey. All right, y'all. I'm gonna stop playing around. Peace.